Hi, this is Professor Lipuma of the New Jersey Institute of Technology, recording for my Technical Communications class with material drawn from my text, Fundamentals of Undergraduate Education and Learning. And this presentation is about PowerPoint templates and how to make the subtle adjustments in PowerPoint, because we're going to use this a lot in my course and for many of you in all your courses as you move through and do PowerPoint. And though we're not going to talk about all the aspects of PowerPoint, we're going to talk about some of the grace notes that we use when we talk about graphics and presentation. So when we use PowerPoint, the first question is, why make adjustments? Why do we need to know these different aspects? And for us, it's very important to understand that you don't have to. Many of you will see a plain white slide with black text all in one font size. But as you create your package, the more you can differentiate and put in emphasis, as we talked about in the graphics section, the easier it will be. Now, we talked about static and dynamic emphasis and the use of graphics and colors, but one of the things you have to realize is that PowerPoint allows you to make this more easily changeable and doable by using templates, but templates can make a difficult thing occur. What we mean by this is that sometimes you don't realize what comes along with a template, and so even though you use a template because you think it will get you where you want to be, it brings with it things you didn't want. Sound effects, animations, transitions, graphics. A template is good if you don't know what you're doing. It puts you in the ballpark. However, you need to know the different aspects of that template so that as you put things together, you can make adjustments so that that package best fits your target and situation to meet your goal. So one of the things we want to talk about is, what are some of the aspects that we can do? Now, one of the simplest things that's existed in PowerPoint for years is this idea of transitions and animations. Transitions were one of the first things included in PowerPoint, and that's what happens between slides. As you move from one slide to the other, there is some sort of going to black or blinds or slides. I'm not going to talk about that much. Not that many people use transitions that much anymore. As PowerPoint and technology and embedded imagery has moved on, they moved to this idea of animation. And you can use an animation scheme, or you can use individual animations on your slides. As you've looked at all my presentations, I've tried to put in some animations between slides so that I can take a slide and progress it forward and bring things on. Now, beyond animations, we're going to have other ideas of color schemes, which is another thing that you can do, such that on a particular slide, the background, the font color, and the style is all already set for you, and you can change it either per slide or for your entire presentation with the click of a button. Then the next thing we're going to talk about is background. Now, this again is as old as transitions, and it really is simply the background, meaning the white space that we have on our thing. And there's a simple way to look at it, but there's a lot of things you can do with the background imagery, and I want to talk a little bit about that. And the last thing we're going to talk about is a design template. And there are many design templates you can use. Some of them come with your PowerPoint. Many of them are available online. But you have to be careful to make sure that the design template fits with the overall message you're trying to convey, so that as your target watches your package and watches your presentation, it accomplishes your goal as you wanted. So let's go a little bit forward and start talking about the first thing we talk about, which is animation. Now, in order to get basic animation, and the ones that we do, what you'll do is in your PowerPoint, and it's different for all the different versions of PowerPoint. I believe I'm using 2003 Office. But if you go to Slideshow and then Custom Animation, you can actually bring up a toolbox on the right side of your screen or wherever you have it set up, which allows you to change how things enter, exit, emphasis, or miscellaneous things, so that you can bring on and move things around. Now, as I've said before in these, there's lots of different kinds of emphasis, and you really have to play with it as you go through. But for us, what you want to think about is that things can enter, exit, or move during your presentation. And most of the time, I have things entering, because I built my slides in a way that I'm talking and moving us forward as I present information. But you can also take things out or have them move. And so I'm going to give you some examples. This was an entrance to bring in some graphics. Then if I want to have it move, I can add emphasis to this by having it move. And then if I want to exit, I can make things disappear. And if I group items together, I can make them remove one at a time. Now, one good thing about animations and PowerPoint is I'm moving forward through my slide. If I made a mistake and need to go back, I can bring that back. Unfortunately, the reverse thing groups them as they did, and then if I have to go forward again, I again have to click through. So be careful as you choose animations and realize that it does make your presentation longer, and hopefully it can be used to aid in how you present and not used, as some of my students say, to distract them from a boring presentation. Remember, the goal of a presentation is to have the audience understand what you want to say so that you reach your targets with the clear information you're trying to convey to them in a way that they understand it. This should be an addition to increase the ability of your target to get your information, not as a way to distract them. So now we want to talk a little bit about color schemes. And for us, the color scheme, again, similar basic, what we want to look at, deals with the font color, the background color, which is the white space, and also the color of any images that we have. To get to the basic color schemes, you go to Format, Slide Design, and then that will bring up a toolbox on the right side, and then there'll be a link to color schemes. Now, there are many things you can do there, right? And as you look at this, it's the idea that there are often many colors and images, and you could individually go in and change each one of these. But sometimes you set it up on a blank screen and then simply want to bring in something. And the good thing about this is that you can make your color scheme fit all your presentations ever, your master presentation, all the slides in this one presentation, or any particular slide if you need to change the color scheme. And as we go through this presentation, you'll see that what I did is I inserted slide design and color schemes for individual slides. Now, let's change that. So the first thing I want to do is I go to a blank screen. But what you'll notice is because of the color scheme I picked, the color of the paper on the right here and the slides on the left, these different bars changed color as well. I didn't have to do that individually. The graphic automatically changed with the white background, black color, and image color scheme. If I decide I want to invert this and go to a black on white, as you'll notice, again, the inverted colors also suddenly the graphics below also changed. Suppose I go to a medium thing in which I want a blue, right? Again, the colors changed. Now, one of our dilemmas here is that, as I mentioned in colors and graphics, you have to decide what looks best for you. You can now go in and individually change these based upon the color scheme, but if you set it up, this is a easy way to quickly flip between things in case you have a presentation which sometimes is viewed on your laptop and other times on a projector, and so you need to invert the entire color scheme so that it's more easily read for your particular situation. Now, moving forward, I had said before that background is kind of the color scheme old style. And for us, background, it's gotten by going to Format, Background, and then a drop-down menu will pop up, a little box will come up, and there'll be a drop-down menu under the picture in which you can actually pick the background. And what this is what is shown behind. Now, part of the reason I didn't put and change backgrounds for this is that it changes the backgrounds on all the slides, and many times it's very difficult to undo. Now, the first thing you can do is by just clicking one button, you can pick any color to put a solid color behind your background. That's fine. But there are other things you can do, and if you go under Fill Effects after you've picked a color, you can change a number of different things. There are 4 tabs, and the first tab is Gradient. And what this does is it takes your color of your background and makes it either darker on the top and lighter on the bottom, or lighter on the top, darker on the bottom, and has an even gradient such that it moves from one extreme to the other, top to bottom. This is usually seen as a very bad thing to do. Let me say that again. And if at all possible, do not do this because it doesn't change your text at all. And so as you move from the gradient from white to black, let's say, the black text on the top is very clear. The black text on the bottom is invisible. As I mentioned in graphics, you need to be sure that if you gradiate your color top to bottom, you also gradiate your font colors. And then you'd have to build your own template to do that. The next thing I want to talk about is texture. And one of the good things that PowerPoint does is it gives you many preset textures. And that could be things like wood grain or tissue paper or flowers and things like that, marble. So if you have a particular situation, for example, you're in a class where you're making a presentation about the Roman Empire and you want to put the column look behind all your slides, you can do that by simply choosing a texture. Another thing that you can do is choose a pattern, and this fill effect can be used for the same thing in any item you put on the thing, but as a background, a pattern is sometimes very dangerous to do because it can be very distracting. And PowerPoint gives you a number of different patterns: lines, bars, checkerboards, stars. It is highly recommended that you be very careful when you choose a pattern, and be careful to choose both the foreground and background color of the pattern so that it's easy to read and matches with your font. Now, the last thing, as with web pages and many other things, you can put a picture, and any picture you'd like, as your background, and it will either tile or be set up depending on what you pick. And this can be very appropriate, but you have to be careful. As you saw in my graphics presentation, some pictures are better than others as backgrounds. If you want to set up a background as an individual page instead of the full page for all your presentations, you can simply insert the picture, the texture, the graphic, whatever you want, by putting a box behind all your text and then building your slide on top of it, so that essentially, even though it's not a uniform background on every page, it becomes the background for that slide page. All right, let's move forward into the last aspect which we want to talk about, which is a design template. Now, what we did here is, if you go to, again, Format, Slide Design, and instead of clicking on Color Schemes, you click on Design Template, this will change not just the color scheme of the page, but how it's designed. The dilemma is it doesn't change the graphics that are on the page. It only changes the design of the template. And design templates can be simple, as this one, which is just a color, or they can be complex, in which they include lines, bars, side images. And so when you look at these kinds of breakdowns, they bring with them a lot of elements that, though some of them may work, other ones may not. Maybe you're doing a presentation on something environmental, so you chose this green template, but did you really want the bar on the side? Did you want the bars going across? You have to be sure that the template does what you want for your target and your situation. Sometimes, however, you have to be careful because it looks really good in general, this idea of, oh, look, I'm in a spiral notebook, but it puts a bar across or your graphics fill over. Make sure that as you put together this set of graphics, it always does what it is you want for what you do. So, thank you, and I hope this was helpful.